In any event, I'm talking to you about the increase in arrests. I know a man went to prison. He didn't hurt a soul. He was completely unarmed. He just entered the Capitol. There's video of him peacefully in the Capitol. Went to prison. I don't remember the length, but it's many months. By the way, do you know that not one of these people has been charged with insurrection? Do you know that you don't have to have been violent at all in order to be arrested? You should see some of the videos of people, the FBI coming at 6 a.m. and banging on your door and coming with sort of, not sort of, I guess, maybe a SWAT team, as if you and your family are major threats to the security of the United States. Did they do this to anybody in the 2020 riots? Did the FBI show up with SWAT teams? William Shipley, a former federal prosecutor who has represented more than 50 January 6 defendants, said he noticed an upswing in cases starting in September 2023. He was sentenced to 12 months. I just got the word of the gentleman, and he is a gentleman that I was talking about. 12 months for entering the Capitol. Every day you see 2 or 3 more, Mr. Shipley said. My own view, it's a political operation. Just my personal opinion, I think the Department of Justice, the Biden administration, is committed to continuing to keep this story front and center for the purposes of the campaign. Did you ever think that you would live to see the Department of Justice and FBI politicized like in dictatorships? I didn't. I have no optimism with regard to the human condition, but I really believed that America was different. That this could not happen. I'm sorry, 32 months. I read that wrong. He was sentenced to 32 months. That's almost 3 years. Not 12 months. I read that wrong here. Forgive me. It's an important correction. 32 months for entering the Capitol. How many people were sentenced for 32 months for 2020 riots, as an example? Of the 769 defendants who pleaded guilty to charges, 69% did so for misdemeanors. So 70% of the 769 defendants who pleaded guilty, and he didn't plead guilty because he's a religious Christian, and he believes that he would be lying if he pleaded guilty. He would be bearing false witness because he wasn't guilty. But if you go up in Washington, D.C., and you're on January 6 charges, you have as little a chance of being acquitted if you're innocent as an innocent black had of being acquitted in the racist South with a white jury. I'm sorry to make the analogy, but it is accurate. Some 1,276 defendants were charged with entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds. Wow. That's quite a charge, isn't it? Entering or remaining. How many leftists have entered restricted grounds and nothing done to them? I remember in college, when I was at Columbia University in the early 70s, I remember students taking over dean's offices, and nothing happened. It was my first awareness that in America there's one rule for leftists and another for non-leftists. It was a very sobering realization. I mean, a lot became clear to me. The cowardice of deans and college presidents among the least impressive Americans. Perhaps the most remarkable January 6th statistic comes from jury boxes in the E. Barrett Prettyman U.S. Courthouse in Washington. Every one of the more than 100 January 6th defendants who chose a jury trial was found guilty of at least some of the charges. Every one. Not one. Amazing, isn't it? That's a perfect conviction rate for federal prosecutors, a statistic cited repeatedly in change of venue motions. In other words, you know what they're asking? The defense lawyers are saying, look, we're not going to get a free trial in Washington, D.C. They don't give the analogy because it would be inflammatory, but I will. It would be, again, like a black in Jim Crow South being tried with a white jury. It would be better if that defendant had been charged in, let's say, Minnesota at the time. All of those motions have been denied of change of venue. The DOJ has stated since January 6th that finding, arresting, and prosecuting those who were at the U.S. Capitol is a top priority, carried out at, quote, unprecedented speed and scale, unquote. The FBI has conducted the largest investigation in its history in response to January 6th. That's scary. That is truly, truly scary. The largest investigation in its history in response to January 6th. The greatest threat in American history, according to the FBI, was January 6th. Matthew Graves, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, said, January 6, 2021 was likely the largest single-day mass assault of law enforcement officers in our nation's history. Now, I want you to hear this sentence clearly. The largest single-day mass assault of law enforcement. That way the guy gets away, this U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. He gets away with no prosecutions or virtually none of the months-long assault on law enforcement officers in 2020. The largest single-day assault. I don't know. I don't even understand what that means. Is it really? Do you remember that? What was it in Dallas? I vaguely remember this, but I do know that it occurred where a guy just murdered multiple policemen. I don't remember the number. Was it 3, 4? None were murdered on January 6th. They claim that some died afterward, but they not of wounds. Remember we told that Officer Sicknick was killed by somebody wielding a fire extinguisher? Never happened. Mr. Shipley said the pace of arrests helps perpetuate the idea that supporters of former President Donald Trump are a threat to society. That's the defense attorney. That's correct. That's what they say. couple of weeks ago, I was on Pierce Morgan, and I debated this man, Reza Aslan. And Pierce Morgan, to his credit, noted that some years ago, Reza Aslan had tweeted that all of the supporters of... For the full episode of the Dennis Prager Show, go to pragertopia.com, sign up, and become a full member.